it's funny when you talk about these playoffs, and I mentioned, this playoffs has been one of the craziest I've ever seen. There's fan bases could probably argue who's had it worse right now. You have the Cavaliers, who are just down a bunch of players: Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter out for game 2. You have Donovan Mitchell turn in one of the best playoff performances of his life, but not the best, 48 points, and they are up again. We just talked about this last week with Pacers Bucks, and now we're talking about it again with the Pacers coming back from down 7 in under a minute to win in regulation with an 8-0 run or 9-0 run, because they won off that Tyrese Haliburton game-winning three-pointer, which was cold as ice, by the way. Now the Pacers are up 2-0, going back to Indiana. There's a lot of questions around Cleveland, their health. Can they keep up now? Got to win 4 out of 5 times. How concerned are you about Cleveland? Because I'll ask you that question to start it off there, since we already talked about our concern level with Boston.
Well, first off, it was Zach Kram, who's over at ESPN now, I believe, had tweeted out there has been, in the last 48 hours, 4 games that had a 98% win probability or higher, and all 4 of those teams lost. And
that's
the
crazy.
Cavs, insane. So just, goes to continue to harp on how good the NBA was boring. Been. Yeah, exactly. It's just, these games have been absolutely out of control, and you almost you can't script how these comebacks are happening. Like that Pacers comeback the other night, they're down 48 points with 48 points. They're down 7 points with 48 seconds left. Imagine that, 48 points in 7 seconds. They were down 7 points with 48 seconds left, and Pascal Siakam misses 2 free throws. And then Aaron Nesmith comes in with the dunk, and then they get a stop, and then it's a layup, and then Spida has the charging foul, and then Tyrese goes 1 for 2 at the free throw line, gets his own rebound, steps out, knocks down 3. All of a sudden, you're down 2-0. Now, where I feel worse about Cleveland's chances of making a comeback are pretty self-explanatory, right? Like the Darius Garland injury is clearly not mine. Mm-hmm. You and I were going back and forth texting about that one. It's a big toe injury, and the report was his biggest problem is starting and stopping. And if you've watched Darius Garland play basketball ever, you know that his entire game, he's one of the shiftiest guards in the NBA today. That handle is crazy. The way that he creates separation is the constant stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. Kind of reminds me of how Kemba Walker was a little bit back in the day. And I mean, we saw how that wore down his knees and stuff too. But, so if that is the injury that's bothering him the most, and that's the part of his game that is the most hindered by the injury, that's a problem, because that's the best part of his game. And then Evan Mobley's dealing with that ankle injury that also doesn't sound like it's, something that's minor, something that he would be playing through if it was a regular season. I actually haven't seen a ton on DeAndre Hunter's thumb, but that's on his shooting hand. So you're talking about not just 3 rotation players, with all due respect to Max Strus or Isaac Okoro or Sam Merrill or whoever, this is the defense player of the year. This is your offensive engine star playmaking point guard who takes so much pressure off of Donovan Mitchell. And then it's DeAndre Hunter, who was the big trade deadline acquisition that really everybody felt like took Cavs over the hump as a title contender. I mean, obviously they were a title contender with how well they played, but people felt like he was kind of the piece that moved him over the hump. So, the Pacers are playing really good basketball right now. I don't think it's impossible by any means, the same way that I was saying with the Celtics. The Cavs have been playing the most complete basketball of any team in the NBA this season, you could argue, between them and OKC. And I don't think that they are extremely intimidated going into Indiana or anything like that. But they're in a similar situation as Boston, where I'm not even talking about the history of nobody's ever made a 3-0 comeback, but it's just you have to win game 3 to give yourself the chance. If they can't win game 3, then they're in big trouble. And the biggest problem is they don't even know if Mobley, Garland, and Hunter are going to be available for your game 3. So now all of a sudden you're expecting another legacy performance from Donovan Mitchell to keep your season alive. It's the margin for error for them is even more slim than it is for Boston, just because they don't know the status of those 3 players.
It's crazy you say that. I was looking at this. I saw it the other day, or somebody tweeted this. I think it was my guy Pod of Fame on Twitter. Donovan Mitchell now 3 of the top 10 scoring performances and losses in playoff history. So he's got 48, 50, and 57, I think, all in losses, which is just the worst company that you ever want to be in. And that was just I tweeted before the end, I was like, man, if they don't get a big game from him, they're in trouble. And again, like you said, they were just one bounce away from escaping with a win at home and this looking completely different. But now it's honestly, even if they split, in Indiana. I like Indiana's chances with a 3-1 lead. I think Cleveland has to go and get both of them in Indiana. Very, very much easier said than done. And before we kind of take a break and shift to the other two series on the Western Conference, I do want to give a tip of the cap to Indiana. Tip of the cap to Tyrese Haliburton. You know, he was voted the most overrated player by his peers, and they have the overrated chance going at Rocket Arena, and Donovan Mitchell's quieting him down. And, you know, that play that he made, I don't know. I know he said he missed that second free throw. I don't know if he did it on purpose or not. I can't tell if he just left it short. But the reason I was thinking about it is because there was like 11 or 12 seconds left. And if he did miss that intentionally, it would have caught people so off guard because they probably would have thought that, you know, you don't try to wait to play the free throw game until much later in the game. Mm-hmm. And that he caught that and was like, okay, I'm dribbling it back out. We're playing with house money here. I'm going to ISO and shoot a 3 for the win. Went for the win, got it. And the stat, he's 10 for 11 this year in shots to go ahead or take the lead late game. Like, that's crazy with him. And that was like on a night where you mentioned Pascal Siakam struggled and Tyrese Haliburton struggled up until like the fourth quarter. And I think that we're starting to realize he's just a very timely guy, makes timely shots and timely plays, especially down the stretch.
Yeah, he's a player who, I mean, you know that I love Tyrese Haliburton, and I know he's getting a lot since draft night. It's honestly one of my favorite draft pieces I ever wrote. That's like one of the proudest evaluations that I ever had. But you know, he is someone who's getting a lot of slack right now, just like on the internet. Like you said, with that anonymous player poll voting him the most overrated player, and for him to come out and have the postseason that he's having and to play at the level that he's playing at and have these big time clutch moments, like it just goes to show that the buzz on the internet and the buzz that you see from day to day on these talk shows and stuff, like you can just outperform that. And that's where I feel like Tyrese Haliburton, like I read an article from Jared Weiss at The Athletic the other day talking about like Tyrese Haliburton having a hard time looking himself in the mirror earlier in the season when he was really struggling. And for him to be able to like go through that type of up and down in this season and then get to the point that he's at in this postseason, like it's hard not to feel happy for him. You know, I mean, after he hit that shot and he was like overrate that in the post-game interview, I'm like, it's cool to see him have this moment. He deserves to have this moment. He's one of the best point guards, one of the best playmakers in the NBA. He's always been a guy that's not afraid to take that big shot. And for him to go down with, you know, that hand or wrist injury or whatever it was in that game, was clearly hampered by it, continue to play through it, continue to make big plays down the stretch, even though, like you said, he wasn't having his best game up to that point, still having the confidence to take and make that shot. Hats off to Tyrese, man.
Yeah, hats off to Tyrese Haliburton. Hats off to Rick Carlisle and that Indiana Pacers squad. It'll be interesting to see how that series continues and if the Cavs can get their guys healthy. Thanks for checking out NBA Sound System Canada on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe below and find us wherever you get your podcasts. And on Instagram, we have weekly episodes and bonus content throughout the week.